Saving money can be a challenge, but a lot more fun of a challenge with the right tracker. In today's video, we're going to look at 12 different saving challenges that you can put into your next bullet journal. The first one we have is a version of the 2323s in 2023, but this is effectively 23 times that you saved $23 in the year of 2023. Of course, if you're setting this up for a different year, you can use different amounts. But at the end of a challenge like this, you will have saved yourself $529. This tracker is just set up so that it is 23 boxes across and 23 boxes tall, and each time you save $1, you just put a dot in the relevant box. You could try and save these in lump sums, so saving $23 at once each time, or you could just save $1 here and there and keep track of it in this way. At the bottom, I've also got a space to log when I reached that goal. So when I reached my first 23 saved, my second 23, and so on. The next idea we have is a savings or spendings year in pixels. Oftentimes, year in pixels is used for tracking moods, but you can use it to track other things, and saving and spendings could be one of those things. On this one, we've got a key set up so that you can log how much you spent or saved that day. I've set it up as if they're looking at spending, so $0 spent is blue, under $10 spent is green, under 20 spent is red, and then over 20 is black. Then for each of the relevant days, you just go and put a dot in to signify what the spending was. I've also got a space to log how much spending you had per month and how much saving you had per month. Flipping over, and the next idea we have is that of the $1 a day challenge. So trying to save $1 each day for the year. If you're successful, then by the end of the year, you will have saved at least $365. For this one though, I've just set it up as a year at a glance, so mini calendars for each of the months of the year, and then you just put a little green dot for any of the days that you did save the $1, and a little red dot for any of the days that you didn't. You could of course change this one to be $2 a day or more, just make sure that it's realistic. The next challenge we have is that of the roundup challenge. So every time that you're buying a specific item, you round up to the nearest dollar amount and then save the difference. So for instance, if your coffee is $3.50, you round that up to $4 and save the 50 cents each time. I don't buy a lot of coffee. I have absolutely no idea if that's a reasonable amount for a coffee, but hopefully you guys get the idea. On this one though, you have a place to list out what the item is, what the cost of the item is, how much the roundup saving will be. So for our coffee, it was the 50 cents, and then multiply that by how many coffees you get in a specific period of time. So this could be on a monthly basis, or you could do it for the full year if you wanted to. Just make sure that you have a good way to log how many of each of those items you're actually purchasing. Then, in the last column, you can sum up the total saving, and then total that up at the bottom to see how much you saved. Flipping over, the next one we have is what I'm calling the 100, 99, 98, etc. challenge. For this one, I've set it up so that we have a little envelope for each of those numbers, and the idea is that you save the amount on the envelope. So saving $1, $2, $3, so on and so forth. By the end of saving each of these different sums of money, you will have saved $5,050. So adding up the numbers 1 through 100, that's how much you'll save. I've just done these numbers in order, so 1, 2, 3, etc. But you could randomize the numbers if you want and work through in whichever random order you've set yourself up for. Effectively though, every time that you save the amount on the envelope, you could just color the envelope in. The next idea is that of a Tetris saving tracker. So each of your different Tetris pieces represents a certain amount of money, and as you save that amount, you put it onto your Tetris board. You could also set up so that you have a specific reward as you complete lines, just like in Tetris where you complete a line and you get points for it. That kind of gamification can help keep you motivated to save more. Flipping over though, and the next saving challenge we have is the My Number challenge, or it's effectively a 52-week challenge, but you pick a number from 1 to 10, and then you multiply that number by a different amount each week. So for the first week, you're going to take your number and multiply it by 1, and whatever the result of that is how much you'll try and save. In the second week, you're going to multiply it by 3, and then whatever the result of that is, you're going to try and save that much each week. Do be careful when picking your number because some of the multiplications kind of get a little big. For instance, we have a times 14 here and times 13. So if you've picked the number 10, that's $140 to save that week and $130 to save that week. Of course, whichever multiplier you're using, you can set up so it's reasonable for you, but this one can be a bit of fun. For instance, let's just say that this person's number was 5, so they can write down that their number was 5. Then 5 times 1 gives them $5 to save that first week. 3 times 5 gives them $15 to save in the second week. The third week it's 5 times 5, so it's $25 to save, so on and so forth. Oof, the next one's $55. That is a bit of money. Obviously, depending on which numbers you pick, the total amount that you're going to save is going to be different, but you will at least save $52, if you're using whole numbers, of course. The next idea we have is Save-opoly, which you can probably tell is a play on Monopoly. But for each paycheck you get, you roll a dice and move yourself around the board and save according to where you land. I've used a combination of different numbers here, so we've got just straight dollar amounts, so save $2, save $5, save $7. We also have percentage of paycheck, so save 1% of your paycheck, save 5%, 8%. And we've also got multiplying the die roll, so 3 times whatever your roll was, or 5 times whatever your roll was. And I've also just chucked in some roll again spaces. If you wanted to, you could very much set it up so that anytime you can't pay the amount, you do go to jail or something, and then you have to try and pay your way out of jail. I don't know, however you want to set it up. But it is supposed to be fun. Don't make it like a punishment thing. Flipping over though, and our next saving challenge is that of a sell it off challenge. So decluttering pretty much your entire house, or whatever space you want to, and then for whatever things you're decluttering that are still worth something, selling those off and then seeing how much you can make from it. I've broken this up into different areas of the house, so kitchen and the items you're selling from there, living room, etc. And then what price you're asking or hoping to get for it, and the total that you're hoping to get from all of those sales. I love decluttering, it's like my favorite sport, and then being able to sell those items off and get yourself a little extra cash is effectively a bonus. The next idea we have is that of a monthly savings challenges, so having a little calendar for each of the months of the year, and then instead of writing the header being the month title, so like January, February, you put in a little challenge for that month. All of my challenges are intended for savings, so having your lunch from home rather than buying it out, having meat-free meals because meat can be expensive, not getting bubble tea, oh! Of course, the challenges that you want to pick are up to you. Make it so that they're actually going to save you money. If you already don't buy bubble tea, there's not a lot of point having a challenge to not buy bubble tea. It's not going to be much of a challenge. Turning over to our next challenge though, this is the loose change challenge. This is particularly good for people who like to pay in cash for things. So at the start of the week, you get out a certain amount of cash, and then at the end of the week, after making your purchases, anything that's left over as change is something that you try and save. Because this one is done on a weekly basis, we have 52 spaces here, so 1 space for each week of the year. And then for each of those, you can just write down how much you saved and total it up at the end. I've also put in a space to write out what your average per week was, just if you're curious. The one we have on the right here though is the how low can you go challenge. So this one is kind of looking at it more from a budgeting point of view. So looking at the different categories that you spend your money on and how much you're spending in that area each month. Then for the subsequent month, you try and spend less. Of course, some months have an unfair advantage. For instance, February, which only has 28 days versus January. So there's kind of an expectation that you might spend less in the months that have less days. But once you write out how much you have spent, you can also use a color code to denote how much over or under or on par the month prior you were. So for example, let's just say you spent $100 on groceries in January because it's easy, but then in February you only spent $80 on groceries. That would have been over 10% lower than last month, because 10% less of 100 is $90 and you spent less than $90. If percentages aren't really your thing, you could of course make these into static numbers, so $20 higher than the last month, $20 lower than the last month, or within $20 of the last month. But it can be a little bit of fun, again kind of trying to gamify our goals. But how else can we use our bullet journal for finances? As a bonus idea, you could set up a financial priorities list, but for more on that one and 20 other money-related bullet journal ideas, head over to the video we have on the screen here. Click or tap that one and I'll see you over there.